I want to welcome everybody to Berkeley Splash. This is the parent program, and my name is Haruka Yamashita. I'm a college admissions counselor, and today I'm going to talk to you about the UC's 14 factors for comprehensive holistic review. Before I begin, just want to get an idea of who my audience is. So if you wouldn't mind just in the chat box telling me if you're a parent and how old your student is, that'll give me some idea. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Meanwhile, I will begin. Today, we're going to talk. I'll be on this. This presentation was originally intended to be about 75 minutes, and Sarah, let me know if that's still the case. We'll just go a little bit over if that's okay. So it's about 11, 10, 10, 10 right now.
Yeah, you're okay with going over because we have lunch afterwards and that can just feed into that.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
So today's program is going to cover three things. First, the kind of a big picture idea of what is important when you're building a college list. And then I'll talk briefly about the UCs, an overview, and then go into the 14 factors for the University of California's holistic review. My background, very briefly, my name is Haruka Yamashita. I am originally from New York. I'm a graduate of Cornell University. I've been in the Bay Area for all of my adult life. I've been involved with college admissions for quite a while, mostly working with Cornell University. But in 2016, I launched my own business, Planet Education. And among my highlights in terms of experiences was working as a UC freshman admissions reviewer. I live in Dublin, and I'm a member of some professional independent educational consulting groups as well, including HECA and WACAC. So best fit colleges. What does it mean to find a best fit college for your student? This is like one of the most basic fundamental philosophies in college admissions. What we like to say is when we're looking at schools for our students, we want to have a nice balance of multiple factors. It's very different from some countries where, college admissions is basically one exam, right? And that determines your college destiny, which way you're going to go. But in the United States, for the most part, best fit college means balancing three things: academic fit, cultural fit, and financial fit. What does that mean? So academic fit can mean everything about the academic life of the student. How have they done in high school? What is their grade point average? What kind of classes have they taken? Do they have academic rigor? Do they like academic rigor, right? How have they done on standardized tests like SATs or ACTs or AP exams? Also, some other questions like what kind of school environment might be ideal for your student? Because, you can't have a one size fits all um, attitude regarding schools, because in some students do better in smaller environments, like with smaller class sizes, and others are okay with larger class sizes and school size as well, right? Sometimes if you have two kids, you can tell that some kids do a little better in one type of environment versus another. Another thing that's important is what the student might want to study in college. uh, it's very common for students to change their major. And in the United States, the range of majors is really astounding. The University of California is a great example. And you sometimes you can't expect an 18-year-old child to know what they want to do for the rest of their life. And so, it's always good to at least narrow it down. But also, if they are undecided, it's also important to honor that and find a school where they can still have more flexibility. And then there was always the college ranking. This is something that sometimes the parents are more concerned about than the student, but where does that fit in academic fit? So those are among the things to think about. Now in the pandemic, there are lots of things that have changed, but a lot of families are concerned about the SATs and ACTs being canceled. Um, there have been over 1 million students who were unable to take the SATs in the spring. And how does that play a role? These are things that we as parents as well as administrators need to adjust to. This is the new normal. So I'll be talking about that a little bit later, but it is all part of the picture. Oh, sorry. Hold on one second. This is like, the next thing I wanted to talk about is social fit. Uh, what are the locations that you would like to consider? What about the weather? Because some students, we live in California where the weather is almost perfect, and you can see from the news that East Coast weather, Midwest weather, the South, that's also different. And some students may have preferences like that. A school setting, whether it's in a large city, say like a New York or a Los Angeles, would be very different from a college town like a Davis, right? Or something that's more suburban. Distance from home is another consideration. Some students want to be close to home, others are itching for an adventure and they want to go explore states that are new to them. What is the happy medium, for what they are capable of? All of the things related to extracurricular activities. If a student has been really involved in high school athletics or music, art, what is important to them? Diversity. And diversity can mean so many things. It's not just ethnic diversity, but also socioeconomic diversity. You want to honor some of that if you want or are comfortable with different living with different types of people. That's all really important. And I think family connections, sometimes when you're looking at locations, it's always nice to know where do your relatives live. When you're talking about social fit, it's really what is your comfort zone and what is the edge of the comfort zone. You don't want to pick something that's totally unfamiliar, but a lot of learning, not just academic learning, but social growth occurs at the cusp, the edges of what's the comfort zone. And there's so much that can be learned by going to and having different experiences. This is a great time in, life to do something different. The last thing I want to mention is safety and security, because this is with the pandemic, the the safety and security has always been a concern for families, but it's taking on a whole new level. So I think it's making a lot of families, both parents and students, a little bit more cautious, and they want to mm, keep the kids closer to home. And at the same time, if they are even wherever they're going, they want to be assured what are the universities doing to mitigate all of the risks related to the pandemic. And that could be academic as well as social, anything related to what is the classroom learning situation like, What is testing going on? What are the testing policies going on? It is kind of endless, and it is a moving target. But um, but those are all things that I consider social fit characteristics. The, the third pillar is something that I call financial fit, because every university comes with with a price tag, and it's important to understand how much college costs. There is the biggest chunk comes from tuition and fees. There's room and board. But the cost of attendance can be more than that, because there are some hidden costs of attendance. There could be fees related to insurance, or activities, fraternities, sororities, even transportation going to and from a campus. Um, and the cost of attendance can be quite high. For example, for the UCs, the cost of attendance per year per student. Anybody want to take a guess of how much that costs? Put it in the chat if you'd like. But it's about $40,000 per student per year. So it is significant, and parents do need to be mindful and prepare for that, for sure. At the same time, there's a thing called net price and sticker price. The sticker price is the price that families, it is the undiscounted price, whereas the net price is the actual out-of-pocket costs for the families. And that becomes that's a whole nother presentation of understanding how much a college education will actually cost your family, because financial aid is, financial aid is a combination of need-based aid and merit-based aid. Sometimes money comes from the federal government, sometimes from the state, sometimes from the institutions themselves. And so it does take time to understand where what your expected family contribution might be. The cost of college education varies widely, whether you're thinking of public schools or private schools, community colleges, CSUs, or UCs, or private schools. The cost of in-state versus out-of-state, need-based aid versus merit aid. Those are all the things that I believe are important factors when you are looking at financial fit for a family, because every university has a price tag, and you have to honor the budget. You have to start with the knowing what the cost will be. In the US right now, there is a student loan crisis. People don't always talk about it, but student loan debt is currently at $1.56 trillion, an average of $33,000 per graduate. This is a national average. I don't know if some families think this is a lot or a little, but this is the college loan debt for the student. This is not for the parent. This is for the student. And this is after the parents have already spent all their money for college tuition. This is after they graduate. So, how responsible is your student in terms of paying off some things like this? Because this is going to take a lot of responsibility. Are they currently responsible for paying their phone bill, their cell phone bill, or paying for gas? If they are responsible students, we need to get them to understand that college does come with a cost, and they have to put skin in the game. And this conversation with students about financial fit is sometimes very uncomfortable. but it still has to be done because um, at the end of the day, you don't want to be in a scenario where, your student gets into their dream school and then at the very last minute, you crunch the numbers and realize you can't afford it, right? Right now with the pandemic, this is an added concern because families are finding out that their savings, their 529s or their 401ks, it's all shrinking. And also from the university side, there are a lot of concerns, especially some liberal arts colleges in the Northeast are finding that they are in some, yellow flags. They see yellow flags financially as well. So keeping that financial fit understanding is really, really important. So just to recap, this is what we mean by a best fit school. Best fit school, finding best fit schools for your student really is a balance of academic fit criteria, social fit criteria, and financial fit criteria. Which one of these three do you think is most important? Any ideas? I actually don't see my chat. I don't know what happened to my chat. I guess I don't see.
People are saying social and
Yes.
academic.
I see people saying social, academic, a balance of all three. Yeah, I think typically I would say most Asian families would say academic, of course, right? I came from an Asian family. I know what that means, or that stress, that pressure. I think academic fit is usually a first starting point that a lot of families begin with, and that's fair enough. But as parents, I think that you need to look at college as a huge cost. It's second to housing in terms of the one of the largest mm, consumer purchases a family will make. So just like if you're buying a house or a car, the first thing you have to understand is what can you afford, and set some sort of parameters, some ranges for what that might be, and say, okay, this is how much we have saved, and this is it for one student? Is it for two students? Does it include graduate school if that's in the future? What if you don't graduate in 4 years? Do you have some reserve for that? All of those things are really important in terms of like considering what to do. All right. So I think academic is a great place to begin, but financial fit is probably the place where really you have to crunch the numbers so that you have the balance. So yeah, all three are really, really important. To balance those three is key. And it's like a stool with three legs. If you don't have the balance, you're going to tip over. And you see that happening in terms of college students. The college students, sometimes you see them return, if they don't want to go back to the same, if they don't go sophomore year, if they come back, they don't graduate. If you look at the graduation rates, and they seem quite low, you can look up in school profiles what the 4-year graduation rate is and the 6-year graduation rate is. And if it looks terribly low, like, the UC, some of the UCs like UC Berkeley, UC LA, they have excellent graduation rates. And even those are like in the 90s. But on average, it's more like 50% graduate in 4 or 5, 6 years. It's really, really serious situation. So, but that begs the question, so why are students not completing their education in 4 years as expected? And that's because the fit was wrong, right? One of those three characteristics were off. whether it was like they couldn't find, they changed their major and it's no longer available, or maybe the classes they wanted were impacted and they cannot take the classes they hoped, or maybe socially it was not the right fit. Maybe they couldn't afford it. You know, they hoped that they could afford it, but they couldn't. So, so that's why it's important to find that balance from the get-go so that you make the right decisions. Okay. How are we doing? Do we want to take a quick break or do you want to keep going? Any questions so far?
Keep going.
Keep going.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Let me just get a show of, like if you can say something in the chat, that would be great. Keep going, keep going. All right. That seems to be the, all right, we'll keep going. So let me tell you a little bit about the public schools system in California. So in California, we have, you know, one of the most populous state in the country, and we have more universities than most states. And so we have 3 different systems in California. The first one I'll say is the University of California, and UC system has 9 campuses. We have the California State Universities. They're often called the Cal State schools. There are 23 of these campuses. And then the California Community Colleges, there are 140 of them. Okay, and they are a little bit different, actually quite different. I mean, research is done mostly at the UC level, and those are known to be the most selective, but there are schools that are in the CSU system, for example, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, probably most famous. I mean, some of those schools can be as selective, if not more selective, than some of the UCs. The California community colleges are also very, you know, people are interested in those as well because there are different transfer programs, and it's also very economical. I mean, as I said, the UCs can cost $40,000 a year. Not every family can afford that, and right now there are different transfer programs where a family can spend 2 years, or a student can spend 2 years at a California community college. You know, that's like a Las Positas or a De Anza or Foothill, Diablo Valley College, etc. I mean, there are 140 of them. You could start there, complete all of your general education classes, and then transfer to a CSU or a UC. It's a tremendous program, and right now it's going strong. The goal was that 1 out of 3 graduates for the University of California will be a student coming in from a California community college. And that has actually come to fruition. As of a couple of years ago, even campuses like, I think, Cal and UCLA, they have, I think they have reached 1/3. So here are some more highlights. These are the schools, right? And there are 4 schools in, well, 5 schools, I guess you could say, in Northern California. That's UC Davis, UC Berkeley, UC Santa Cruz, UC Merced. And then in Southern California, there are 5 campuses: UC Santa Barbara, UC Irvine, San Diego, UCLA, and UC Riverside. There's one that's not like the others. Do you know which one and why? Maybe you can say in the chat. Who can guess? That's right. UCSF. So UCSF is a graduate program, yeah, the med school. So it is not for it doesn't have an undergraduate program. But the other, so there are 10 UC campuses, 9 are undergraduate programs. 9 are undergraduate campuses. All right. These are some of the little logos. So, but each school has a little bit of its own characteristics, its personality, selectivity is different, the different college campuses and their majors may be different. So you know, you just need to spend some time doing the research. I don't want to say, okay, you just look at the selectivity. That's just one component of the college environment. But there are 270,000 students in the UC system. This is, again, the top public research system in the US. There are 2 million living alumni. It's tremendous. It's really, really astounding. 10 campuses, 5 medical centers, and 3 national laboratories. Then there is the UC admissions policy, and a lot of people are interested in understanding how that policy works. This is, anyone recognize this woman? So she is Janet Napolitano. She is the head of the entire UC system. And you know, there is something called the Board of Regents that sets the UC admissions policy. And it's important to note that there are some policies that are common among all 9 UC campuses. And then there are some policies that are specific to a campus. So what does that mean? That means that, for example, there are like 14 factors that all of the 9 campuses believe are, you know, 14 factors that all UC campuses use to determine admissions. And that can, but at the same time, they can be adjusted according to each campus. All right. Each UC campus applies this comprehensive review process independently. And so the admission rates and enrollment targets vary campus to campus. And even among each campus, right, there are some schools that may be more selective than others. Right? Like, for example, computer science is a great example of a very, very selective major. And a major like that may be more selective no matter which campus you're at, right? Something like music or art, that might be very, very selective as well. But they may be looking at things like a portfolio, which is different from the academics. So again, comprehensive review means that there are 14 factors, but depending on the campus, meaning like UCLA, UC Berkeley, UC Davis, UC Irvine, each school will be interpreting it separately. And then lastly, to know that admissions decisions are made independently. So you see Santa Cruz is not checking to see, oh, was that kid admitted to Davis? You know, let's just double check her. You know, oh, if he's going there or she's going there, then we don't need to admit her here or something like that. That does not happen. The UCs make their decisions independently. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So now I'm about to start talking about the actual 14 factors. All right, do we need a break? Or shall we keep going? All right, so far one person says keep going. All right, we'll keep going. Okay, so if you were to do an internet search and just a Google search and said, what are the top 10 factors that the UCs consider important? What kind of search, would you get anything? The answer is no, because actually there are 14 factors that the UCs look at, which is considered their comprehensive holistic admissions criteria. So what are these 14 factors? So first of all, the word holistic, that means comprehensive, right? The word holistic comes from the word whole. It means just taking a look at the entire student, right? And there are academic factors, as well as extracurricular and context type criteria, as well as some others. What do I mean by academic? All right, so number one, the first criteria is the grade point average GPA, right? So this is obvious, right? They want to look at the high school record. Which GPA are they looking at? Are they looking at the weighted GPA, the unweighted GPA, or the UC GPA? Actually, they're looking at all of them, right? So the unweighted GPA is your straightforward GPA, like A's are 4.0, B's are 3.0, C's are 2.0s, and the straight average would be your unweighted GPA. Your weighted GPA gives you extra points if you are taking an honors class or an AP class, because the highest class, an A in those classes might be counted as a 4.5 or a 5.0, and that just keeps giving you some bumps. The UC GPA is another GPA that they look at, where it is all the academic classes for 10th and 11th grade. And they only include up to 8 semesters of AP classes. So there is a bit of a capped GPA, all right? But of course, the higher the GPA, the better. Next is standardized test scores. Okay, traditionally, the UCs have asked for the SAT with essays or the ACTs with writing. It's typically the best one seating. There are things like the PSATs. I don't think the PSATs are looked at, but APs and subject tests, depending on the major, they have looked at those things as well. And if you want to see information about what are the UCs looking at specifically, you can Google UC freshman application data and get some more information about specific campuses. You can check to see what the 25th to 75th percentile range is for each campus. That is on a bell curve. What is the mid-range of students? What are their test scores like? And if your student is in that range, then you can see, okay, we're probably more or less on the range. If you are nowhere near it, like if you're on the bottom 25, then you know that that means that you're kind of on the lower end of the admitted students. If you're on the over 75th percentile, then you'll know that you'd probably be a strong candidate for the school. But this year, of course, is a different year, right? Everybody is concerned because with coronavirus, along with everything else, this has really dramatically affected higher education. And the UC policies have also changed. Truth be told, there has been a nationwide trend of de-emphasizing SATs and ACT tests as a factor in college admissions. And the UCs are actually, in this case, you could think of UCs as a consumer of the College Board's SAT exam. And the UCs have said that they're going to be also de-emphasizing the exam. And you can imagine it's a huge system. They're not going to change the policy like overnight, but in a phased approach. This is what they're saying. So for this year, the current seniors and the current juniors for fall 2021 to 22, it is called test optional. And then for the next 2 years, fall 2023, fall 2024, for current sophomores and freshmen, it's going to be test blind. So you can see the transition that the standardized tests are going to be counted less each progressive years. So what does that mean exactly? It means in a test optional situation, freshman applications are not required to submit ACTs and SAT scores. This is because up until last year, if you did not submit those exams, forget it, you would not be considered at all. And now, right now, if you're unable or choose not to submit the SAT, ACT scores, your application will still receive full consideration. But if you look at the fine print, the test scores may still be used for admissions, and it may still be used for scholarships. It may still be used to determine eligibility in local context, and it may still be used for course placement after you enroll. So it's not like it totally isn't used at all, but it is definitely, well, like it says, test optional. After 2 years, they're going to phase into the next, well, they'll move into the next phase. It's called test blind. And that means that the UCs will not use the test scores for admissions decisions. And, but it may still be used for scholarships. It may still be used for eligibility in local context and course placement after you enroll. What is eligibility in local context? That's a good question. I will get to that because that's one of the other 14 factors. All right, any questions? Yeah. All right. Well, the other thing is what happens after 2024? Well, the UCs are trying to decide that right now. And this policy, as I explained it right now, is as of October 20th. And the details, if you look up you can look it up on the UC website, or you can look up, there was a major announcement done in the news back in May, and you can look up the Washington Post. They explain it fairly well. Just do a Google search and they'll explain the transitions. And after 2024, they're going to try to come up with another just UC only test or something like that. They're coming up with different scenarios, but I think it's just going to continue to be de-emphasized. I will also say that there's a lot of litigation going on right now, and a lot of back and forth, flip-flop, and you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, this information maybe may not be 100% accurate tomorrow. But suffice it to say, the trend is that these tests are getting de-emphasized every year. And so net, as a college counselor, do I recommend that you take these tests? Because at the end of the day, that's what you want, right? You want to know, do I need to worry about my kid not being able to take the SATs? I would say, don't worry about it, because we're all in the same boat in California. And you don't want, the UCs have clearly stated they don't want anybody to be risking their own health and safety, themselves, their parents, and others, traveling like more than 300 miles to other states, to Idaho, etc., to take an exam, right? So focus on what you can focus on. Focus on the other 13 factors, because as I said, there are 14 factors that are used in holistic review, and this is only one of them, right? All right, so let's continue on our list. Number 3, A through G requirements. So in your high school curriculum, there are different subjects and they are labeled A through G. So A is history, then there's English, math, science. LOTE stands for language other than English, visual and performing arts, college prep electives. All of these are considered required coursework, and how you do in those classes is important to these as well. If you have taken math or language in 7th or 8th grade, that is also important. And you can also include that as part of your college application. I have attended many UC counselor conferences, and one of the things that the UC counselors have stated over and over is that they're looking for academic rigor, but not death. So don't beat your kids and tell them they have to take all these AP classes and just, an overwhelming amount. What is academic rigor is very subjective, because what is academic rigor for one student may not be academic rigor for a second student, right? So if you are a student and you're getting mostly A's and B's, that's probably the right amount of academic rigor. If you are a straight B student, do you need to take all these APs? Probably not, right? Because your regular curriculum is rigorous enough. If you're getting straight A's and you have no APs, well, that doesn't look good either, because that means that you kind of took the easy way out, right? So the UCs want to see that you are taking an appropriate amount of academic rigor. Number 4, UC approved honors courses and advanced courses. What does that mean? Well, there are honors classes, AP classes, IB classes, International Baccalaureate, transferable community college classes. All these things are for students who go above and beyond. And so if so, your GPA gets little bumps. And I should say AP scores are additive or neutral. What does that mean? It just means that they can improve your GPA. They're not, they won't take away. Someone asked, what is ELC? Eligibility in the local context. This is something that is a factor that affects California residents. But if you are in the top 9% of students in California high schools, then you are guaranteed a seat in the UC system. Good news, right? Yeah, it's actually fantastic news. But you should also know that it is not necessarily the campus of choice. It doesn't mean that if you're in the top 9% of students in your class, you're going to get a seat at, Cal or UCLA or Davis. Most likely it is, Riverside, Santa Cruz, or Merced. More likely Merced, now that that's like the newest of the UCs. How is the top 9% calculated? GPAs for the most part, but SATs in the past have been. So, but I think that the SATs are de-emphasized, right? So there's probably it's weighted, and GPAs are probably the most important thing. But the schools are going to decide which, the high school gets to decide which students are in the top 9%. And students will get a letter after junior year if they are in that top 9%. Or I think the 11%, if you're kind of like in that range. And they'll, because if you're in the 11%, they'll be like, come on, work on it so that you could be in the 9% and get the ELC. So if you get that letter, consider that a good thing. Your student is doing well. Number 6, academic opportunities in your high school. So, not all high schools are built equally, right? Some high schools offer 5 APs, other schools offer 20. what the UCs want to know is like, did you make the most of the opportunities available to you? So if your high school only offers 5 AP classes, you can't be expected to take, 6, 10 AP classes compared to other students, right? Other students, if you have the chance, then they're going to say, well, you should be doing, the best. The bar becomes higher at a school that does that has a lot of academically challenging courses offered. And so for some students, it's better to be a big fish in a little pond. What does that mean? It means that, well, for any student, it's better to be an outstanding student at an above average school than to be above average at an outstanding school. Does that make sense? It's better to be outstanding in your high school. It's better to be outstanding at an above average school than to be just above average at an outstanding school. And it's kind of like outstanding. What does that mean? I'm talking about like a very high achieving school. And that's a hard concept to kind of, accept sometimes. But, and it's true for high school. It's true for college. It's true for life too. Sometimes you just have to figure out, place your bets. Number 7, outstanding performance in one or more academic subject areas. So they do want to see a little bit of focus in one area, because students, by the time they're high school seniors, they'll generally get, the beginning to specialize, right? Whether it's in, say, a STEM field or writing or English or history or math or science or whatever. They want to show some real outstanding performance in something. So if you can show that, that's a good thing. All right. That was all the academic stuff. Now we're going to shift a little bit to the non-academic stuff, because when they say holistic evaluation, it's a combination of academic as well as non-academic factors. So number 8 is school participation, right? School projects in the school context, school events, school projects, school programs, anything that's like, if you've been involved in your school, that is a plus. Why? Because the students who have been involved in high school are going to be the students that are going to be involved in college, right? And college ideally is the universities, colleges, they want to get schools that are full of vitality. So they don't want just, of course they want kids that are going to go to the library, but you don't want kids that just go to the library. They want the schools to have students that are lively. They put together events, they put together programs, projects. There's a lot of interaction. That's where the growth is. That's where the fun is. College is supposed to be learning and living and everything else, right? So colleges are going to want students that will add to the intellectual and cultural vitality of their campus. Number 9, special talents, achievements, and awards. So if, along these lines, you have demonstrated a special talent, won awards, these are all wonderful things. And again, in any extracurricular activity, visual and performing arts, debate, athletics, languages, cultural things, exceptional leadership, community service, student government, all these things are really wonderful. And if you can demonstrate that, it's a wonderful thing. You don't want to just, but it takes a while, right? You don't, develop special talents, achievements, and awards overnight. So sometimes, you know, parents are like, well, which special talent should I get? My neighbor there has been doing debate, and that kid has been doing basketball, and this kid has been is studying, you know, Chinese. Which one is the most important activity? The answer is that there's no one art activity. You really have to ask your child. You know, it's the child that gets to decide which activity is important to them. You don't force any kid to do any activity because, you know, your neighbor happened to get into a top school. Because you have to have some authenticity, right? Be true to what they want, what they love, what they feel passionate about. Because those are the ones that are going to continue. Because maybe during elementary school, you have a breadth of activities, right? The kid is doing soccer, and they're doing piano, and they're doing theater arts, and they started chess, and they're learning this language, and they're doing cooking or whatever. And then as you get older and older, you're like, oh, school's getting a little bit tougher. We can't do quite as many activities. So maybe 6 activities becomes 3, and then it just keeps getting smaller and smaller. But by the time you're in high school, you should have depth more than breadth, right? As elementary school, middle school is more about breadth, and then high school is more about depth, because they want to see, wow, this kid has been doing this for, you know, 6 years. That's pretty good. 8 years. You know, that shows a lot of discipline and interest, and is probably going to continue through in college. Number 10, improvement in academic performance. So this is, maybe this one should have been in academic, but but the trends are important, right? Of course, if your student has been getting straight A's always, can't beat that. But maybe your kid hasn't been a solid A student from the beginning. Maybe they have struggles. So what do you do in that case? Well, in that case, you know, it's better to have an up, you're looking at me this way. So an upward trajectory is better than flat, you know, and it's probably better than one of those irregular ones too. Anything that's shows improvement in academic performance is a good thing. Number 11, educational prep programs. So some schools are offering programs like AVID or EAOP. These are college preparatory programs. And if your student has been participating in those can also be an added plus. Number 12, academic accomplishment in light of life experiences. All right, so what does that mean? That means that, you know, if the student has shown academic achievement in spite of various struggles outside of their control, that means that the UCs will take that into consideration, right? Anything like disabilities, low-income families, first generation. If a student has to go to work because, you know, the family doesn't have economic, you know, stability, any kind of disadvantaged situation, special family circumstances, those will be taken into consideration as well. We're down to the last 2, final, geographic location of the high school. So the UCs are a state institution, right? So they are in a public institution, and therefore they prioritize admission for California residents. They do admit out-of-state students and international students in all of the campuses, but the admission criteria for out-of-state students is higher for non-California residents. And they also charge an extra fee for non-residents. And the number of students that are from California ranges, but overall it is 76%. And 7% are domestic out-of-state students, and international is 14%. It just, when I say it varies by campus, like you see campuses like UC Berkeley and UCLA have more international students than, say, UC Merced or Riverside or Santa Cruz. And if you're curious about what international regions these students are coming from, the biggest ones are as follows: China, India, South Korea, Taiwan, Canada, Indonesia, and Japan. You can check out some links as well. But this is also something that's affected by the pandemic. It's really, right now, we have a very, unfriendly to foreigners type of a scenario right now, and visas are difficult. So this is probably going to shift a little bit, but we'll see. And a lot of people wonder, like, how difficult is it to get residency for the UC? And suffice it to say, it's very, very hard. There is a list of criteria you need to do in order to gain UC residency for University of California purposes, and it is hard, but that's another story. You can look it up as well. Last one, this is the quality of the senior year program of study. And so remember, the UC GPA I mentioned is the sophomore and junior year grades, and the application for the UC system is due on November 30th. And that's of the senior year. So senior year winter grades, the December grades, are usually not submitted. So does it matter what you do during the senior year? The answer is yes, it does matter, because they are looking at the quality of the senior year programs. They'll look at the student has to enter all the classes that they're taking. So if you're taking all this academic rigor, APs, and suddenly senior year, you're like, you got nothing, you've got senioritis, then that's not necessarily good too. Senior transcripts are due on July 2nd. So after you've been admitted, after you've committed to the school, after, you have, it's summertime now and your final grades are in, that's when you submit your senior transcript. And you have to complete all the classes as promised, because if you look at the fine print, it's still a conditional admit. It means that if you suddenly fall apart senior year, the UCs have the, reserve the right to say, forget it, we're not going to give you the seat. So be careful. You just make sure that you complete, like if you say you're going to take the AP physics test, you better take the AP physics test. And it's better to get a 2 in it than to get a no-show, because the no-show looks really, really bad, and you don't want the UCs to rescind any offer, right? That would be just awful. So there you go. So that's our program. That's the presentation in a nutshell. I went over building your best fit college list. Remember, the academic, social, and financial fit. Those are the 3 things that are really essential in building your college fit. And then I talked about the different 9 campuses as part of the UCs, and then the 14 factors for holistic review. Next steps. Let me just tell you a couple more things. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself too. This is my website. If you found this presentation helpful, I hope you can take a look at my website. I have college knowledge webinars where I share a lot of great information with my families and students. I have a weekly Facebook Live where I share some good information, tips and tricks, and just college knowledge, really what's going on, especially in this pandemic. So you can look it up as Planet Education. I just launched my YouTube channel. Look, you can be my 5th subscriber. So I just loaded about 40 or so little videos to help families figure out things like how to do virtual visits and what are reactivation plans looking like, and why community colleges should be added to your college list. And last but not least, I have college knowledge webinars. I've got 2 courses, one on college research and another on college financial literacy. And these are some topics that I cover. And I think they're a great way for families to be educated so you can make the best college decisions. This is a big consumer purchase. So I encourage you to look into these things. If you'd like to get more information, please include your email address. If you could put that down, that would be great. And if you want a recording as well, just put down your contact information. I have a free video, college application timelines and checklists for sophomores and juniors, and that you can grab from the top of my website as well. You can see the little button on the top right where you can get this first free video. And there's my contact information as well. And I thank you for your attention. And if you have questions, I'm happy to stay on the call as well. I'm going to stop sharing and can answer your questions.
Can I make a short announcement before people
Sure.
start leaving the Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
Apologies for the technical difficulties this morning, but we will be starting our next event at noon. So please go back to our website and click on that link when come noon. And thank you so much, Haruka, for speaking. You gave such good, relevant, and important information. And I'll let people ask questions.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So any questions? Any questions? So if you're interested, you can subscribe. Oh, here's a question. If a child excels in humanities, does she need to take AP Calculus to show rigor? No, I don't think so. You don't need to take AP Calculus to show rigor. You do need to take I think 4 years of math is important, but if your child's focus is humanities, maybe take a different AP, like AP History, AP English, AP language, maybe even a foreign language. So I would recommend aligning the coursework, especially if you have electives, to the direction your student is more likely to go. Are AP scores considered other than SAT, ACT? I think AP exams are still counted. But APs are for advanced placements. So they're not necessarily used for admissions. It's used to help the university place the students. So like, let's say you take an AP biology and you get a 5, you might not take you may not get AP, you might not go into biology 101, maybe you would go into bio 103, which is a little bit accelerated, something like that. So I think it's helpful to take the AP exams, but AP classes, but it should be aligned to what your student is interested in. Do you think it's harder to get into UC from New York? This is just my personal feeling. I think it's a good year for out-of-state students to get into UCs because UCs are not going to have all the international students. So I think it'll be a little bit of a bump, a little bit easier for students from out of state, but they do need to still meet all of the requirements. And it also depends on which campus and it depends on which major. Do the number of AP classes taken matter? Yeah, it does matter. Because it reveals rigor. And does a transfer from CCC from a community college, as a transfer student from a community college, are high school transcripts looked at by UCs or only our community college? I believe that for transfer students, high school records don't matter for transfer students. Are honors courses also considered the same way as AP courses? I believe the honors class bump maximum is a 4.5. The maximum you can get on the GPA is a 4.5 and the AP is a 5.0. So you get a bigger bump for an AP class because it is considered more rigorous. Does it benefit to take AP courses in sophomore year? Yeah, you could take it at any year, but I think it's more, sophomore and junior year is the best year to take it if you want to get the bump. But take a look at your child and understand what they can and cannot handle. There's no point in if they can handle it, by all means, go for it. But if you don't think they can, then don't, you don't want to have the kid hate math prematurely because they took a class that was way too difficult. Does it benefit AP chemistry for chemical? Yeah, if you're interested in chemical engineering and you have AP chemistry, I would definitely try to take it. You want to show your interest, and student wants to know too, right? Is it necessary to take AP subject tests? I think AP subject tests, SAT subject tests are, everything matters is a question of how much. There is a link on the UC website that says SAT subject tests that are recommended. So for the most selective majors, they will look at it. Is it better to get a B in AP or an A in a regular class? Oh, that's an excellent question. So is it better to get an B in an AP class or an A in a regular class? And this has been debated, but most people would say it's better to get a B in an AP class because it shows that you have taken the rigorous path. You tried, better than a kid who's never tried. In ninth grade, our school doesn't offer AP in ninth grade. Any suggestions? Your school is not the only school that doesn't offer APs in ninth grade. Many high schools don't offer APs in ninth grade because they don't want the kids to go crazy. And it's, mental health and balance is so important, especially during this pandemic. I think that with this pandemic, our thresholds for stress is lower. And we have to, like you and I are all irritated. We don't get to exercise as much. We don't get to see our friends as much. There's so much more stress. There's more economic stress, and you can't. The teachers can't teach the way they want, and you can't learn the way you want, and there's a lot of stress going on. So we have to adjust to all of this, and the university side, UCs, as well as private schools, I think, are mindful of that. We just have to put things into a different context, and this is a very uncertain year, so things are different. How many extracurriculars is a good number? I mentioned this earlier, but in the early years, elementary and middle school, breadth is more important. And by the time you're in high school, depth is more important. Probably good to have 2 or 3 deep stuff going on. Something like that. I mean, if you have more, you don't want to sacrifice depth for breadth. Is it necessary to take dual enrollment in college? Is it a disadvantage if you fail? It is a disadvantage if you fail, because technically you're supposed to share all your transcripts. That's, you do when you submit your application, you have to sign and say you've been truthful and you're putting everything in there. Is it necessary to take classes from like a, I think you look at what's offered in your school curriculum and then you make your decisions. No one's, you should not feel like compelled to drive 30 miles to take a special class. EAOP is college prep classes for schools maybe that offer it, oftentimes for low-income students, but that can be helpful. All right, so somebody who's interested in neuroscience and music. So that's really interesting. Some students do have an interest in 2 totally different fields. Probably good to go to a larger university that has, well, I mean, you want to go to a school that offers both. You don't want to go to a school that just has one or the other. And then with music and art students, you would probably have to decide, do you want to go to a school that only offers that kind of specialization, or something that offers the academic side as well? Do you want to show showing high potential in music? Yeah, of course, that would be great. If they're interested in pursuing that as a major. Let's see. If a student gets an A in AP class but only a 3 on the AP test, does it look bad? Well, of course, a 4 or 5 is better, but some of these APs is extremely difficult to get the 4s and 5s. So, a 3 is average, and especially when you're talking about some of these AP classes, like let's say a BC calculus, physics, things like that, it's hard. So I think it's okay, and it depends on the school, right? Harvard may not think a 3 is very good, but many schools will be like, geez, this kid actually took AP physics. That's good for him, good for her. So it depends on who's looking at it. Does the UC system value demonstrated interest? I don't think so. I don't believe, UCs don't look at things like interviews. They don't keep track of like whether you've done school visits. So I would say no. Any other questions? I think I've tried to answer everything. Wow, this chat was so lively. I love it. So if you're interested in keeping in touch, send me your emails, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel or my Facebook Lives. Oh, more questions. Hang on. Let's see. Are there any differentiation between privates and UCs? Yes, yes, absolutely. That's another presentation. You have to go to my college knowledge webinars for that one. Should I still take the SAT exam? If you can find the SAT offered, let's say if you're at a private school, some schools are offering it. Yeah, I'd say yes, but don't go crazy trying to take the SAT exam. Don't drive like 300 miles to take the SAT exam. And still, even if you get registered for it, some kids are finding that they're canceled on the spot, like the day of. It's just maddening. So I would not go too far out of your way, because it's tremendous disappointment. Some kids have had SATs canceled like 3 times in the last 7 months, and it really disrupts a student's momentum and their motivation for going to college. Focus on what you can focus on. Right now, the GPA is the most important thing. Will it be useful with other students who didn't write SAT? I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, I think that's about it. If you got a bad score in the written SAT, this year I would not submit the SAT, especially if you got a bad written score. You get a free pass. If you got a bad or average score or below, you look and see what schools you're applying to. I mean, this is not just the UCs, but for the in general, for the private school, for any school, public or private, in general, if you have weak SAT scores, ACT scores, do not send it. Don't send it. People are not going to question that. If you have exceptional grades, exceptional scores for SAT, send it. But if it's average or below, don't send it. In general, that's what I'm saying. So if you missed my presentation, it is available as a video, so you can get it that way. Last call for questions. What's my YouTube? It is my YouTube channel is College Knowledge with Haruka. And my Facebook is Planet Education, 3 words. How should a student decide between a UC and a private college? Well, balancing the 3 fit criteria: academic fit, social fit, and financial fit. You do need to do research because every school has pros and cons. Wow, we got new people coming in still. Anyway, I think that's about it. I think we will wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for your attention. My name again is Haruka Yamashita from Planet Education. If you're still interested in getting these good nuggets of information, I encourage you to check out my website, planeteducation.com, or check out my Facebook or my YouTube. Let me put it down. Let me put down my website. That's my website. And then this is my YouTube. Did I spell something wrong? Yeah. And Facebook Live. All right. All right, this is Ruth Bader Ginsburg signing off. Have a good day and happy Halloween. Bye-bye.